Out of the thousands of homes in Austin, only a select few earn the coveted 5-star green rating. This home is one of them. But what truly sets it apart isn't just its sustainable design or energy efficiency, it's the man behind the work, Tom Silva. For over 30 years, Tom has been the steady hand behind some of the most respected renovations in the country. He doesn't just fix homes, he understands them. He brings them back to life with a level of craftsmanship and care that's rare in any trade. During this project, for example, he paused mid-renovation to point out the ceiling, not just its structure, but its history. The plaster was reinforced with horsehair, even goat hair, an old technique used long before modern materials. And when replacing fasteners, Tom made sure to source the exact screws originally used, just to maintain authenticity. That level of dedication says everything about how seriously he takes his craft. But not everything went smoothly. One phase of the project revealed dangerously poor wiring, the kind of mistake that could have started a fire. Another misstep led to a full roof collapse. Frustration set in. Trust was tested. Even Tom, known for his calm under pressure, admitted this was one of the toughest builds he'd ever faced. And that says a lot coming from someone with his experience. By May 2025, he was deep in blueprints, double-checking every detail to prevent another major setback. Because when things go wrong on a build this important, how you respond makes all the difference. Tom Silva has spent decades guiding this old house and breathing new life into places others had written off, from decaying farmhouses to forgotten Victorians. He doesn't just renovate, he respects. That respect shows in every project he touches. He's known for walking homeowners through the process. Step by step, sand it, stain it, do it again. Then, he stands back and lets the work speak. For itself, no shortcuts, no rushing, just doing it right. Still, the road hasn't always been smooth. Tom has worked with countless teams, many great, some challenging. In a rare moment of reflection, he shared lessons learned from 5 team members who made serious mistakes. Not to shame them, that's not his style, but to underscore how one misstep can ripple across an entire build, how fragile trust can be on a job site. For Tom, it's always been about doing the right thing, even when it's the harder path. Because, to him, that's what real craftsmanship looks like. Tom Silva holds himself to an uncompromising standard and expects the same from anyone who picks up a tool belt beside him. Years ago, during an interview, he shared a simple rule that's stuck with people ever since. If you wouldn't do it in your own house, don't do it in someone else's. It's not written down or printed in a handbook, but everyone who's worked with Tom knows it and knows the weight it carries when things go wrong. One of the stories that illustrates this best comes from a renovation of an old colonial home in Boston. The house dated back to the 1800s. Its bones creaked with history, its charm rooted in the details. The team's mission was clear: restore it with care, not just precision. Part of the job involved rewiring the entire electrical system, a delicate task handed to a new hire, named Jake. On paper, Jake had the credentials. Plenty of job sites under his belt, confident, ready to work. But confidence without patience can be dangerous. Tom had warned the team early on. The wiring in this house was unpredictable. Old connections, fragile insulation, unknown pathways. Behind the walls, everything needed to be checked, methodically, before making a move. But Jake didn't think it was necessary. He trusted his gut, ignored the checklist Tom had laid out, dove straight into replacing the mains. Everything looked fine, until it wasn't. Midday, the rest of the crew worked nearby. Loud pop echoed from the living room, a puff of smoke, then a spark. Within seconds, a small flame caught the dry, century-old wall paneling. The house, this carefully preserved home, was suddenly in real danger. The crew acted fast and managed to contain the fire before it spread. But not before part of the ceiling was scorched, and some of the trust on that job was too. Tom didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He walked the site, found the exposed wire, and called Jake over. "You skipped the inspection," Tom said. "It wasn't just a mistake that could have hurt someone." Jake tried to explain, said he was under pressure, But Tom cut him off. There's no pressure worth putting people at risk. And that was it. Jake was off the project. No drama, no yelling, just a line Tom wasn't willing to see crossed again. And the days that followed, Tom took on the electrical work himself. He met with the homeowners, explained exactly what had happened, and promised them it would be made right. No shortcuts. No excuses. Later, he reminded the crew of something he'd said before. One small misstep can wipe out 100 years of work. That wasn't just about wires or wood, it was about responsibility. Jake wasn't a bad electrician, but that day, he forgot what mattered. And in Tom's world, that's all it takes for things to go wrong, because when safety's on the line, there's no room for guessing. You do it right, or you don't do it at all. But the fire wasn't the last challenge on that project. The very next week, different kind of heat hit the site. Not from wires or flames, but from personalities. It was season 39, episode 8. The crew was working in the sun-drenched suburbs of Massachusetts, building what looked like a simple modern shed. But anyone who's followed this old house long enough knows there's no such thing as a simple build. Every cut, every joint, every tiny detail matters. And as always, Tom Silva was there, making sure it all stayed on track. Then there was Ronnie Dot, fresh to the crew, and hired as a technical assistant. His job was simple but essential. Measure accurately, prep materials, and keep the build moving smoothly. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was the kind of behind-the-scenes effort that holds a project together. All it really required was patience, teamwork, and a good attitude. Unfortunately, that last part, teamwork, is where things got rocky. From day one, Ronnie walked onto the site with a chip on his shoulder. His skills weren't in question. He knew the tools, the math, the workflow. But his attitude, that was the problem. He muttered under his breath, rolled his eyes when asked to double-check something, treated every request like a personal insult. You know that coworker who sighs louder than they work? That was Ronnie. Things came to a head one morning. Noticed a slight misalignment in the floorboards, just enough to throw off the level of the entire foundation. Not a huge fix, but one that needed to be addressed immediately. Tom asked Ronnie to remeasure, simple request. But instead of just doing it, Ronnie snapped. Right there, mid-shoot, cameras rolling and crew watching. I already did it right, he barked. Why are you always nitpicking? Suddenly everything stopped. Hammers paused mid-swing, heads turned. Even the breeze seemed to still, but Tom didn't flinch. Calm as always, he looked at Ronnie and said, 1. Small mistake can ruin the whole foundation. You to work for the team, not for your ego. Most people would take the hint. Ronnie didn't. He doubled down. Refused to redo the work. Insisted he was right. What followed was an uncomfortable standoff that derailed the rest of the day. Shoot halted, morale dropped, energy on site turned heavy. Tom called for a short break and quietly pulled Ronnie aside behind a stack of lumber. There was no yelling, no theatrics, just a calm conversation. You've got the skills, Tom told him. But that attitude doesn't belong here. If you're not willing to change, I can't keep you on. And just like that, the decision was made. Ronnie was replaced before the next shoot. Later, in an article on this old house's website, Tom reflected on that moment. One person out of sync can break team spirit. We need people who love this work. That line stuck. Not because of the drama, but because of how true it is. Construction isn't about one person showing off. It's about everyone pulling together to get the job done right. Even the homeowners noticed the shift in pace and asked what had happened. Tom kept it professional. No gossip, no blame. Just a promise that the shed would be finished on time and to the standard they expected, and it was. The crew worked overtime, double-checking every measurement, every joint, no shortcuts taken, just solid, honest work. Ronnie M. may have had talent, but talent only gets you so far if you can't work with others. In the end, teamwork beats talent every single time. That shed now stands not just as a finished structure, but as a quiet reminder. Skill without cooperation doesn't build anything that lasts. With that lesson still fresh, The crew moved on to their next challenge. A historic townhouse in Cambridge, Massachusetts, about to undergo a complete transformation. This wasn't just a facelift, it was a full-scale reinvention of the space. Top to bottom. Enter Linda Viv, an interior designer with a stacked portfolio and a personality to match. Her work had been featured in glossy design magazines, and she arrived on site with mood boards, fabric swatches, and a clear aesthetic vision. At first, things looked promising. Her ideas were polished, her sketches were sharp. Oh, the crew was hopeful. But if you've ever worked on a team project, you know how quickly things fall apart when someone refuses to collaborate. Within days, Linda started going rogue. One afternoon, just as the crew was prepping the dining room to be painted a sleek silver gray, the color everyone had agreed on, Linda breezed in and made a snap decision. Let's do cream instead. No heads up, no discussion, just a last-minute curveball. The painters stopped mid-roll. Supplies had to be reordered. Time and money gone. And that was just the beginning. Days later, after the steel frame for a decorative wall had already been welded and set in place, Linda decided she wanted the wall moved. That meant tearing it down and starting from scratch. Again, without warning, every decision she made seemed to come at the worst possible time. Last minute, unapproved, and expensive. Frustration bubbled under the surface. Deadlines slipped, tempers flared, the budget. Let's not even talk about the budget. Eventually, Tom had to step in. He sat down with Linda and said calmly but clearly, "We need a unified plan. These surprises are throwing everyone off." But Linda pushed back. She argued that creativity can't be boxed in, that great design evolves constantly. Which sounds nice until you remember there's a schedule, a crew, a homeowner waiting. Then came the final straw. Just hours before the front door was scheduled to be installed, a custom piece that had taken weeks to fabricate, Linda Moldham asked for an entirely different design. Installation was halted. Materials had to be reordered. Time burned. And the homeowner, already nervous about delays, started voicing concerns. The breaking point came when Linda gave unauthorized instructions to move a decorative column. That one move completely derailed the flooring schedule. Crews were forced to backtrack, reschedule, recoordinate multiple teams. Tom had had enough. He pulled her aside, no longer hiding his frustration, and said, "Your creativity is appreciated, but this isn't a one-woman show. If you can't collaborate, I'll find someone who will." She didn't back down, so Tom followed through. Linda was replaced by a designer who understood how to balance vision with collaboration. Someone who knew that a great idea only matters if the team can actually bring it to life. With the new designer in place, the energy returned. But Linda's disruptions had cost the team valuable time. Everyone had to work overtime just to get the project back on track. Tom personally met with the homeowner, promising the project would still be completed on time and to the standard they'd been promised. No shortcuts. This renovation had high stakes from day one. One of the most ambitious elements, reinforcing the roof to create a new attic living space, complete with oversized custom windows that would flood the room with natural light. It was a beautiful idea, but risky. Big windows mean big structural challenges. And in unpredictable New England weather, can't afford to get the engineering wrong. So the team brought in Frank, a seasoned structural engineer with a spotless resume and an easy confidence that put people at ease. He showed up with crisp drawings, technical specs, and answers for everything. But Tom Silva, a man who's seen more structural failures than most people have seen sandwiches, offered a quiet word of caution. "You've got to account for the wind," Tom said. "It's stronger here than people think." Frank nodded, took the drawings back. But he never adjusted the calculations. He figured his numbers were already good enough, safe enough, no need to overthink it. What could go wrong? Plenty. During filming on a particularly blustery day, the crew began installing the main roof beams. Then came the sound, deep, sudden, unmistakable. A crack. Not the kind you shrug off, the kind that stops everyone cold. In seconds, part of the roof gave way. Dust and splinters flew. The crew scrambled for safety. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the frame they'd spent days building was destroyed. A supporting wall beneath it had cracked under the weight. The homeowner, watching from a distance, stood frozen. Streamatic had just collapsed in front of his eyes. Tom immediately pulled the plans. There it was. The wind load severely. Underestimated. This wasn't a minor oversight. It was a critical flaw. Standing face to face with Frank, Tom's voice stayed steady, but firm. This kind of mistake doesn't just cost money, it can cost lives. Frank admitted the truth. He'd been distracted, juggling too many projects, and hadn't given this one the focus it needed. Tom didn't want excuses. He brought in a new engineer the same day, then led the crew in dismantling the damaged frame. Beam by beam, everything had to be redone from the ground up. Time lost, materials wasted, trust shaken, all in a single gust of wind. But Tom didn't dwell. He called an emergency crew meeting, reinforced the importance of precision, and worked tirelessly to bring the project back on track. The homeowner, though disappointed, appreciated the honesty, and in the end, the attic got built properly. This time safely, no risks taken. Tom later said, "Every number on a blueprint carries weight. We can't afford to be careless." After what happened in episode 12, no one on the crew doubted that again. The roof collapse wasn't just a structural failure, it was a wake-up call. Loud, brutal, unforgettable. Frank, a smart, capable engineer, had been at the center of it. But even deep knowledge isn't enough if your attention slips, because in this world, one wrong calculation, one skip step, can bring everything crashing down. Tom didn't waste the lesson. From that moment on, he introduced strict cross-check. Protocols on every job. No assumptions. No shortcuts, because a single mistake doesn't just break wood or steel. It breaks trust. And trust is the hardest thing to rebuild. The crew came out of that moment sharper, wiser, more precise. They had two, and they carried that focus with them into the next challenge. Season 42. Episode 6. Newton, Massachusetts. The goal? Turn a cluttered, overgrown plot of land into a clean, structured garden complete with a driveway and parking area. It sounded simple, until the heavy machinery rolled in. Chris T. was the excavator operator brought in for the job. On paper, he was the right guy. Years of experience, solid resume, a history of clean, efficient work. But as Tom always said, machines are powerful, but only safe when the operator is fully alert. That morning, Chris didn't seem alert. His eyes were BOOD soaked. His movements, sluggish, to speech slightly off. Something wasn't right, Tom noticed immediately. But instead of calling it out, he watched closely, quietly. Then, just a few hours later, the red flags turned into a full-blown emergency. While shifting a massive pile of stone, Chris lost control. A rock, several hundred pounds of solid. Danger slipped. It crashed down just feet from where the crew was working. The sound was like thunder. Everyone froze, then scrambled. Had someone been standing closer, the outcome could have been tragic. Tom didn't hesitate. He shut everything down, walked straight up to Chris and said, "You're not clear-headed enough to be operating this machine. It almost caused a serious accident, and I can't let that happen." Chris tried to explain, said he was just tired from a long night, but Tom wasn't buying it. He asked him to leave the site and immediately reported the incident to the producers. It wasn't personal. It was about safety and accountability. Later, that day, Tom addressed the crew. His words stuck. "We work with machines, but safety lies with people. One moment of carelessness can take everything away." The homeowner, who had been watching the project unfold with quiet excitement, was visibly shaken. Tom met with them personally, explained exactly what had happened, made no excuses, promised stricter safety checks moving forward. He didn't just patch things up, he owned the situation. From that day on, the team implemented new health screenings before every shift. Tom personally oversaw the hiring of a new excavator operator. And more than that, he set a new tone for the site, one where safety wasn't assumed. It was proven daily. And when you step back and look at the names, Jake D., Ronnie M. Linda, V. Frank H. Chris T., it becomes clear these aren't just isolated mistakes or behind the scenes drama. They're a reflection of the standards Tom Silva has always held himself. And his crew too, because he's not just building homes, he's building something bigger, a team, culture, a legacy of professionalism where accountability is the foundation. And that's why this old house stands apart. When the show first aired, it wasn't just about renovations. It was about restoration, of craftsmanship, of integrity, of pride in doing things the right way. It sparked a movement. With 17 Emmy Awards, dozens of spin-offs, and an undeniable influence on shows like Property Brothers and House Hunters. The legacy is everywhere, across more than 40 seasons, plus the beloved Ask This Old House. Tom Silva has become more than just a contractor on TV. He's become a mentor to millions, whether he's showing viewers how to safely hang a door, choose the right wood grain, or troubleshoot a tricky joint. He does it with patience, clarity, respect for the craft. He doesn't just teach, he empowers. Norm Abram once said, Tom has the gift of making the complex simple. He's the reason so many people picked up a hammer for the first time. Kevin O'Connor put it perfectly. Tom doesn't just teach skills. He teaches you how to love the craft. In a world full of shortcuts and quick fixes, the ones who slow down, do it right, and care deeply, they're the ones who build things that last. They're the ones we remember. And that's what this old house has always been about.